The steam hit me like a wall, thick and suffocating, wrapping around my skin before I could even catch my breath. At 18, I wasn't ready for the dim red glow that turned strangers into shadows, their eyes glinting like predators in the haze. And then, there he was, Joshua, leaning against the tiled wall, his gaze locking onto mine with a hunger that stripped me bare, whispering, "First time? Don't run." I bolted upright in bed that morning, heart slamming against my ribs like it was trying to escape. The alarm on my phone blared some indie rock track I'd forgotten to change, but it was the dream that had me gasping. Flashes of hands on my body, unfamiliar and urgent, in a place I'd only read about in hushed online forums. San Francisco. The Castro. Steamworks. The name alone had haunted me for weeks, ever since I turned 18 and the world suddenly cracked open with possibilities I wasn't sure I wanted to chase. My name's Daniel, and up until that humid July afternoon, I'd been the good kid from the suburbs of Sacramento, the one who aced AP Calc, volunteered at the animal shelter, and smiled through family dinners where Dad droned on about football stats and Mom passed the mashed potatoes with a side of passive-aggressive sighs. Gay? Sure. I'd known that since middle school, when locker room glances lingered too long on Jake Ramirez's broad shoulders. But acting on it? That was a line I hadn't crossed. Not with the Bible study group at church. Not with the college scouts sniffing around my lacrosse highlights. Until now. The bus ride down from Sacramento was a blur of golden hills and my own sweaty palms gripping the armrest. I'd packed light, a backpack with a change of clothes, a towel I'd bought specifically for this, and a fake ID that looked convincing enough under fluorescent lights. By the time I stepped off at the corner of 18th and Castro, the neighborhood assaulted me with rainbow flags snapping in the breeze and shirtless guys sauntering past coffee shops like they owned the damn sidewalk. Pride Month had come and gone, but the energy lingered, electric and unapologetic. I felt like an intruder, my straight-leg jeans and faded Nirvana tee screaming tourist, amid the crop tops and leather harnesses. Steamworks loomed at the end of the block, its nondescript facade hiding what I'd imagined 100 times over. A labyrinth of desire where boys like me shed their skins. My stomach churned as I paid the entry fee, $30 that felt like a toll to hell or heaven, depending on the hour. The clerk, a middle-aged bear with a beard like steel wool, handed me a key and a towel without batting an eye. Locker 247. Have fun, kid. Fun. Right? I stripped in the locker room, folding my clothes with trembling hands, wrapping the towel around my waist like armor. The mirror showed a body I'd starved for definition, lean from runs along the American River, but soft around the edges, unmarked by the tattoos and piercings I saw on the guys emerging from the showers. I looked young. Too young. But the steam called, and so did the ache in my chest that had built for years. Pushing through the heavy door, the heat enveloped me immediately, a lover's breath hot against my neck. The air was thick with chlorine and something muskier, primal. Dim lights cast everything in crimson, turning the maze of corridors into a vein-pulsing underworld. I wandered, towel clutched tight, past open doors where silhouettes writhed on vinyl benches. Moans echoed softly, a soundtrack to sins I both craved and feared. My pulse thundered in my ears, drowning out the rational voice screaming to turn back. That's when I saw him. Joshua. He was propped against the tiled wall of the sauna room, legs spread casually, towel draped low on his hips like it might slip any second. Mid-20s, maybe, with skin like polished oak and eyes the color of storm clouds, gray and piercing. A faint scar traced his left collarbone, disappearing under the fabric, hinting at stories I wanted to unravel. He wasn't grinding against anyone, he was just watching. And when his gaze snagged on mine, it held. No flicker of dismissal, no predatory leer. Just recognition, like he'd been waiting. First time, his voice cut through the steam, low and gravelly, with that California drawl that made everything sound like an invitation. He straightened slightly, muscles shifting under his skin, toned, not gym rat bulky, but earned, like from hauling boxes at some warehouse gig or surfing the breaks at Ocean Beach. I nodded, throat dry as sandpaper. Words failed me. My brain short-circuited on the proximity, the way his towel tented just enough to betray interest. "Don't run," he added, a half-smile tugging his lips, revealing a dimple that softened the edge of his jaw. It wasn't a command, it was a plea, wrapped in velvet. I didn't run. Instead, I stepped closer, the wooden bench creaking under me as I sat a respectful distance away. The heat seeped into my bones, loosening the knots of tension I'd carried for miles. Joshua didn't push, he just talked. About the city, how the fog rolled in like a jealous lover every night, claiming the hills for itself. About the sauna, how it was less about the hookups and more about the exhale the moment you stopped pretending. His name was Joshua, he said, but friends called him Josh. He was from Oakland, crashing on a buddy's couch while chasing gigs as a barista/aspiring photographer. "What about you?" he asked, eyes tracing my face like he was memorizing it for a lens. "Daniel. From Sac. Just turned 18. Figured it was time." My voice cracked on the last word, and I cursed inwardly. "Smooth, Dan. Real smooth." He chuckled, a sound that vibrated through the steam. "Brave. Most guys your age stick to grinder swipes and regret texts." He shifted closer, our knees brushing, a spark that jolted straight to my core. "But you're here. That's something." We talked for what felt like hours, though the clock on my phone later said 20 minutes. About music, his love for old-school hip-hop, my obsession with Elliott Smith. About coming out, him at 16, disowned by a father who preached fire and brimstone from the pulpit. Me, still in the closet, dodging mom's worried glances over breakfast. The vulnerability hung between us, fragile as the steam curling upward. When his hand finally grazed mine, fingers calloused from camera grips intertwining with my smooth ones, it wasn't rushed. It was deliberate, a question answered with a squeeze. "Come on," he murmured, standing and tugging me up. "Let's get out of this oven before we melt." We moved to the rooftop deck, a hidden oasis above the frenzy below. The San Francisco skyline stretched out, bathed in the late afternoon sun, skyscrapers piercing the haze, the bay glittering like shattered glass. Joshua lit a joint he'd stashed in his locker, passing it to me with a wink. I took a hit, coughing lightly, the smoke loosening the last of my inhibitions. We leaned against the railing, shoulders touching, and for the first time, I felt seen. Not as the straight-A kid or the lacrosse jock, but as Daniel raw, wanting, real. "You know," he said, exhaling a plume toward the clouds, "this city chews you up if you're not careful. But nights like this, they make it worth the bite." I turned to him, our faces inches apart, his breath warm with weed and promise. "What if I want to get chewed?" His laugh was soft, then gone as his lips met mine. It was clumsy at first, teeth clacking, noses bumping, but then it deepened, tongues tentative explorers mapping uncharted territory. His hands framed my face, thumbs stroking my cheeks, and I melted into it, the world narrowing to the taste of him, salt and smoke and something uniquely Joshua. We didn't go further that night. Not there, amid the voyeurs who might wander up. Instead, he gave me his number scrawled on a napkin from the lounge, and we parted with a hug that lingered too long, bodies pressed flush, hearts sinking in the quiet. "Text me," he said, eyes dark with unspoken hungers. "We'll do coffee." Real shit, not this steam dream. I walked out into the Castro dusk changed. The towel exchanged for jeans that now felt too tight, too confining. The bus back to Sacramento rocked me to sleep, dreams laced with gray eyes and dimpled smiles. Nothing was the same, and I didn't want it to be. The text started the next morning. Casual at first. "How's the straight world treating you?" I'd fire back from chem lab, boring without the fog. By week 2, it was nightly calls, his voice a lifeline through the monotony of summer job shifts at the local bookstore. Joshua sent photos, grainy shots of graffiti-splashed alleys in the Mission, a latte art heart from his shift at the cafe. I reciprocated with blurry selfies from the riverbank, pretending my life had color without him. Visiting became inevitable. Mom thought it was a college tour. Explore UCSF. "Honey, it's got that prestige." Dad grunted approval over his newspaper, oblivious. I booked the train, heart racing faster than the rails. Joshua met me at the station, all easy grins and a kiss stolen in the crowd that left me dizzy. We wandered Haight Street, thrift shopping for vinyls and vintage tees, his arm slung around my shoulders like we'd been doing this forever. That night, we crashed at his buddy's cramped apartment in the Lower Haight, a sagging couch that smelled of patchouli and takeout. When his hands roamed lower, exploring the dips of my hips, I didn't pull away. It was slow, reverent. Shirts discarded in the moonlight filtering through cracked blinds, skin on skin like a revelation. He whispered my name like a prayer, guiding me through the nerves with patience that bordered on worship. Afterward, tangled in sheets that weren't ours, he traced patterns on my chest. "Your trouble, Daniel. The good kind." Summer blurred into a montage of stolen weekends. Greyhound buses became portals. I'd emerge into his arms, backpack slung over one shoulder, ready to dive back into us. We hiked the Land's End Trail, fog muting the crash of waves below. His laughter echoing as he snapped candids of me posing dramatically against cypress trees. Evenings dissolved into dive bars where he'd nurse a whiskey sour and I'd sip virgin mojitos, our knees knocking under sticky tables as we dissected dreams. His of a gallery show, mine of escaping the Central Valley for good. But cracks spiderwebbed early, if I'd cared to look. Joshua's phone buzzed constantly, texts from Alex or Tyler, names he'd brush off with a shrug. Just friends from the scene. His shifts ran late, excuses piling up like unread messages. One night, after a particularly grueling Greyhound delay, I showed up unannounced at the cafe. He was there, all right, but so was a guy tall, inked, leaning too close over the counter, Joshua's hand lingering on his as he passed change. Our eyes met through the window, and the smile he flashed was all teeth, no warmth. I confronted him later, in the alley behind the shop, crates of recycling clanging as I paced. "Who's he?" Joshua sighed, lighting a cigarette with hands that shook just a fraction. "A regular. Flirts with everyone. It's nothing. Looked like something." He stepped close, cupping my jaw, thumb pressing my lower lip. You're the one I wait for, Dan. The buses, the calls, that's real. This, he gestured vaguely at the graffiti walls. It's noise. I wanted to believe him. God, I did. So I swallowed the doubt, let him kiss it away under the sodium glow of street lamps. But the seed was planted, a thorn in the rose of our romance. Fall crept in with yellowing leaves on the Sierra foothills and a scholarship letter to UC Berkeley that felt like fate's wink. Mom cried happy tears over dinner. Dad clapped my back hard enough to bruise. Joshua hooped over FaceTime, promising weekend raids on the Berkeley hills. Our city now, he said, and I clung to that like a buoy. But Berkeley was a beast. Lecture halls echoing with theory I could ace but never feel. Dorm mates blasting EDM till dawn. A roommate named Kyle who eyed me curiously after spotting a Joshua postcard taped to my mirror. I threw myself into it. Poli-sci seminars dissecting American exceptionalism. Pick-up soccer on the intramural fields where I'd scan crowds for brown skin and gray eyes. Joshua visited first. Train ticket stub in hand, crashing on my narrow bed amid stacks of dog-eared Foucault. We fucked like we were making up for lost time. Urgent, bodies slick with sweat and the desperation of distance. Missed this. He groaned into my neck, fingers bruising my thighs. Missed you. Lies have a way of festering. Started with a missed call, then two. Texts went from hourly to sporadic. Busy shoot tonight. Cafe slammed. I scrolled his Instagram late one night, paranoia gnawing, posts of sunsets over the Embarcadero, captions cryptic as haiku. Then, buried in stories, a hand, not mine, intertwined with his against a backdrop of velvet curtains. The handle? Tyler Inkling. Heart emoji. My stomach plummeted. I didn't sleep. By morning, I'd pieced it together. Tyler's profile a gallery of Joshua doppelgangers. Same poses, same smirks. Comments from mutuals, you two are fire. The betrayal hit like a sucker punch. Not the act itself, but the ease of it. How many buses had I ridden for a man who slotted me in between shifts? The confrontation brewed over weeks, a storm front rolling in. Joshua arrived for our planned Halloween weekend, me in a thrift store vampire cape, him in ripped jeans and a leather jacket that smelled of smoke and other colognes. We hit the Castro block party, bass thumping through the streets, drag queens on stilts tossing glitter like confetti. But the high wore off fast. In a crowded taqueria line, I spotted Tyler, lanky, with sleeve tattoos blooming like nightshade, waving Joshua over with a beer. They hugged, bodies flush, and something in me snapped. Outside, I hissed, dragging him into the alley where earlier we'd made out against a mural of Harvey Milk. What the fuck, Dan? Joshua yanked his arm free, eyes flashing. Who is he? Really? He deflated, rubbing his neck. Tyler. We hooked up a few times before you. It's casual. Open. If you want the truth. Open. The word tasted like ash. You never said. You were 18. Fresh. I didn't want to scare you off. His voice cracked, pleading. But it's you, Dan. Always has been. I laughed, bitter and hollow. Liar. I'm the weekend special. He's the everyday. The fight escalated, words like shrapnel. My accusations of using me as an escape. His defenses crumbling into admissions of fear, of loving too hard after his dad's rejection left him hollow. I fuck up because I'm scared you'll leave, he shouted, tears carving tracks through the glitter on his cheeks. And now look, I left him there, alley shadows swallowing his silhouette as I stumbled back to the train, cape trailing like a shroud. Berkeley welcomed me with rain-slicked quad and Kyle's concerned, "You okay, man?" No. Nothing was. Winter quarter hit like a freight train, midterms stacking up like indictments, the relentless patter of bay rain mirroring the downpour in my chest. Joshua's texts trickled in. "I'm sorry. Can we talk?" I read them in the dead of night, thumb hovering over delete, but always hitting archive instead. Forgiveness felt like surrender, and I was done being the boy who bent. Instead, I dove into the campus scene, queer alliance mixers in the poly ballroom, where awkward flirtations over spiked punch offered distractions that tasted like cardboard. There was Micah, a theater major with freckles like constellations and a laugh that lit up the greenhouses where we'd sneak joints during study breaks. He was safe, openly out, no baggage heavier than a bad audition. We kissed once, behind the stacks in Moffett Library, his hands gentle but uninspired. It was fine. Adequate. But as his lips brushed mine, all I could summon was the ghost of Joshua's dimple, the way he'd murmur poetry from Ginsberg into my ear during lazy afternoons. I ghosted Micah after that, burying myself in essays on queer theory that dissected betrayal like a cadaver on a slab. Professor Langston, a silver-haired dyke with a voice like aged bourbon, pulled me aside after office hours. "Your paper on intersectional desire, brilliant, but raw. Channel that pain, Daniel. Art's the best revenge. Revenge." The word simmered as I wandered Telegraph Avenue, dodging buskers and falafel carts, until I stumbled into a hole-in-the-wall camera shop. The clerk, an elderly Asian woman with cat-eye glasses, nodded at my fumbling explanation. Something simple. For a beginner, she handed me a Polaroid SX70, its leather case worn soft as a secret. Joshua's influence, creeping back uninvited. "Capture the light," he'd say, "before it slips." My first shots were shit. Blurry co-eds hustling to class, the Campanile Tower shrouded in mist. But one afternoon, hiking Grizzly Peak with a half-empty thermos of coffee, I framed the sprawl of the East Bay, Oakland's lights twinkling like defiant stars against the dusk. Clicking the shutter felt like exhaling, a click that sealed the fracture just a little tighter. Spring break loomed, a week of obligatory family time in Sacramento. Mom's almond-crusted chicken and Dad's grilling marathons awaited, laced with the undercurrent of "So, any girls at Berkeley?" I booked a red-eye back early, craving the anonymity of the city. But fate, that cruel curator, had other plans. The train rattled into Emeryville Station, and there he was, Joshua, leaning against a pillar, camera bag slung crossbody, looking like he'd aged a decade in months. Leaner, shadows under his eyes, but that scar still winking like an old friend. "Dan," one word, and the dam cracked. I froze, backpack slipping from my shoulder. "What are you doing here?" Rode the same line. Coincidence. His smile was tentative, hands shoved deep in his pockets. Or maybe I checked the schedule. Hoped. Anger flared, hot and familiar. "Hoped for what?" "Round 2 of your open-door policy." He winced, stepping closer despite the frost in my voice. "I fucked up. Royally. Tyler was a mistake, a crutch after my mom got sick. Cancer. Stage 3. I didn't tell you because I didn't want pity. Or to drag you down." The confession landed like a gut punch. Joshua, the unbreakable one, unraveling while I'd been nursing my own petty wounds. "Why now?" Because losing you hurts more than any of it. His voice broke, gray eyes pleading. Let me make it right. Coffee? No strings. Just talk. Against every screaming instinct. I nodded. We ended up at a dive-off San Pablo Avenue. Formica tables sticky with syrup residue. The hiss of an ancient espresso machine underscoring our stilted silence. He ordered black. I went for a latte with extra foam, watching his fingers drum the mug like they used to on my thigh. Stories spilled then. His mom's chemo sessions in a sterile Kaiser room. The way he'd capture her smile between nausea waves with stolen snapshots. My own confessions followed, the isolation of the closet, the terror of being just another notch. By the time the sun dipped low, casting amber through grimy windows, the chasm between us had narrowed to a bridge. I'm not the same guy, he said, reaching across to lace our fingers. Therapy. Boundaries. For real this time, I squeezed back, pulse racing. Prove it, he did, in fragments. Weekend trains resumed, but slower walks along the Oakland estuary, where we'd feed crusts to indifferent ducks and talk futures without the haze of lust clouding judgment. Joshua's photography bloomed. He landed a gig shooting for a local zine, portraits of trans kids in the fruit veil that bled raw humanity from every frame. I tagged along once, holding reflectors in a sun-baked park, his focus intense as he coaxed laughs from shy subjects. See that? He murmured during a break, showing me the back of his Canon. A boy, no older than 15, mid-giggle, eyes alight with unscarred hope. That's what you gave me. A shot at light. Intimacy rebuilt brick by brick. Our first night back together was in his new studio apartment. A shoebox in Temescal with peeling wallpaper and a Murphy bed that creaked like confessions. No rush. Just undressing by candlelight from thrift store votives. Mapping scars with lips and whispers. His over his collarbone, from a skateboarding wipeout at 16. Pre-coming out bravado. Mine, invisible, etched in the valleys of doubt. When he entered me, slow and sure, it was reclamation. Bodies sinking not in frenzy, but in rhythm, a dance we'd learned the hard way. Summer swelled with promise. I deferred a chem internship for a road trip, his beat-up Honda Civic loaded with Polaroids, a cooler of IPAs, and playlists shuffling from the National to Solange. We snaked down Highway 1, windows down, salt wind whipping our hair as Big Sur cliffs plunged into turquoise swells. Stops blurred. A bonfire on Pfeiffer Beach where we burned old love letters I'd written but never sent. A midnight dip in McWay Falls pool, naked and shivering, his arms my anchor against the current. In motels with threadbare quilts, we'd fuck till dawn, then wake to coffee brewed on a hot plate, planning the next horizon. But America being America, shadows lurked. We hit Joshua's hometown in the Central Valley, Bakersfield, oil rigs dotting the flatlands like mechanical dinosaurs. His mom, frail but fierce in her bandana and hoop earrings, welcomed me with a hug that smelled of lavender and regret. Heard a lot, she rasped over tamales steaming on the table. Dad was absent, exiled to a trailer on the outskirts after the divorce, still slinging sermons via YouTube. Dinner was a minefield, her questions about school, his deflections laced with old hurts. Later, in the guest room with its faded Astros posters, Joshua broke, sobbing into my chest about the boy he'd been, the one who'd prayed the gay away till it nearly killed him. You're enough, I whispered, holding him as thunder rumbled distant Sierras. We're enough, the betrayal echoed back that August, insidious as valley heat. I'd crashed at the apartment while he shot a wedding in Napa, vineyards and vows, the irony bitter. Bored, I scrolled his laptop for music, stumbling on a folder. Us. Hundreds of photos. Me sleeping in sunbeams, laughing at dive bar Jenga, mid-kiss on the rooftop deck. Treasures. But nested deeper emails. To Tyler. Miss our rhythm. Dan's great, but dated last month. While we'd been building bridges, he'd been burning them at the other end. Rage boiled over voicemail. How could you? His train pulled in at midnight. I met him on the platform, rain sheeting down like judgment. It was one slip. A drunk text. Nothing happened. Liar. I shoved the printouts, emails I'd mocked up on the spot. This isn't nothing. This is us, Joshua. Or was. He crumpled, rain mingling with tears. I panic. When it's good, I sabotage. Therapy's bullshit. I'm broken. Then fix it alone. I walked away, the Civic's headlights fading in puddles. Heart a wreckage of what-ifs. Berkeley fall was apocalypse, classes a fog. Friends concerned pats like salt in wounds. I channeled it into art. A photo series for Langston's class. Fractured frames. Polaroids of shattered mirrors reflecting distorted Cal landmarks. It won a campus exhibit spot. Opening night a blur of cheap wine and nods from strangers. Micah showed. Awkward but kind. Proud of you, man. I smiled. Hollow. Joshua's mom called weeks later. Voice a rasp through static. He's spiraling. Mijo. Lost the gig. Won't eat. Guilt gnawed. But love's a stubborn weed. I drove down on a whim, finding him in a Temescal squat, beer cans like landmines, camera gathering dust. He looked up from the floor, hollowed out. Go. I deserve it. Instead, I sat. Hours bled into dawn, truths unearthed. His fear rooted in abandonment, mine in invisibility. We're human, I said finally, hand on his knee. Messy. But maybe that's the point. Forgiveness isn't fireworks. It's embers, slow burning. We rebuilt sideways, weekly check-ins via Zoom. No-touch visits to galleries where he'd critique my shots with that old spark. Intimacy waited, promise deferred. By winter, clicked. Him moving boxes into my dorm sublet. Polaroids pinned above the bed like talismans. One night, rooftop deck redux, steamworks below a distant hum. He knelt, not with a ring, but a vintage lens. Focus with me? Gray eyes steady. No shadows. Yes, I breathed, pulling him up into a kiss that tasted like home. America stretched vast and flawed, but in that moment, we were its beating heart scarred, resilient, unapologetically ours. The sublet became our nest. A third-floor walk-up in South Berkeley with creaky oak floors and windows that rattled in the wind off the estuary. Joshua hauled in crates of vinyls and darkroom trays, turning the kitchenette into a makeshift lab where red safe lights glowed like embers. I balanced it with lab TA gigs, pipetting solutions under fluorescent hums while dreaming of his calloused fingers on my skin. Life settled into a rhythm, mornings tangled in thrift sheets, his coffee breath murmuring 1 more minute against my neck. Evenings arguing over takeout portions of aloo gobi from the Indian spot on San Pablo, his laughter bubbling when I'd hog the naan. But normalcy's a fragile pain, cracked by the world's weight. Joshua's mom's remission news came mid-semester, a scan clear as a summer sky. We celebrated with a picnic in Tilden Park. Eucalyptus shading the blanket as he snapped candids of me mid-bite into a prosciutto sandwich, mustard smearing my chin. My muse, he teased, licking it off with a kiss that drew wolf whistles from frisbee-tossing undergrads. Yet beneath the joy, tremors, her voice on speakerphone, edged with, "But what if it comes back? Cancer's a thief, stealing tomorrow's one cell at a time." My own fissures widened too. Dad's annual Thanksgiving summons arrived like a summons to the gallows. "Family time, son. Bring your A game." I hadn't come out. Not fully. Mom suspected, her Pinterest boards shifting from wedding cakes to inclusive family recipes. But Dad? He was Reagan-era stubborn. Football Sundays sacred as sacraments. Joshua sensed the storm brewing over burnt Thanksgiving practice turkey in our oven. "Tell them. Or don't. But don't carry it alone." The drive to Sacramento was a gauntlet. Interstate 80 snaking through Delta fog, his hand on my thigh a steady anchor. We pulled up to the split-level rancher as dusk bruised the sky. Mom's poinsettia wreath a festive lie. Hugs exchanged. Joshua introduced as my roommate from Berkeley, visiting for the holiday. Dad's grip was iron, lacrosse build. "You play." Joshua's easy nah. More of a shutterbug diffused it, but the undercurrent hummed. Eyes on our synced steps, the way I'd brush his arm without thinking. Dinner was a minefield masked as pot roast. Dad's tales of '86 Niners glory clashing with Joshua's quips about Oakland's underground art scene. Mom steered with grace, passing cranberry sauce and probing gently. "Berkeley treating you well, Danny? Any special someone?" Her eyes flicked to Joshua, hopeful. I swallowed, fork midway to mouth. "Actually, yeah. Joshua's. More than a roommate." Silence crashed like cymbals. Dad's knife scraped porcelain. Mom's hand fluttered to her throat. Joshua's fingers found mine under the table, a lifeline in the tilt. "We've been together 6 months, he said, voice steady as the bay. "Love him." Simple as that. Dad's face modeled, napkin crumpled in fist. "Love? Like that way, Daniel? This some college phase? God doesn't. Enough." Mom's voice, rare steel. "He's our son." Not a debate topic. Tears welled. But she held Dad's gaze till he deflated, muttering about needing air, storming to the garage for his workbench sanctuary. The aftermath was autopsy. Mom hugging me in the kitchen, whispering, "I'm proud." Always was. Joshua fielded texts from his own fractured family, a sister in Reno texting support emojis, his dad radio silent. We crashed in my old room, posters of Derek Jeter curling at edges, bodies spoon tight against the ghosts. "Brave," he murmured into my hair. "My hero." Christmas brought olive branches. Dad's grudging, "Pass the gravy" at brunch. A wrapped toolbox from him to Joshua. "For your projects." It wasn't acceptance. Not yet, but a crack in the armor. We fled back to the bay on Boxing Day. Civic piled with leftovers and a bottle of Mom's homemade Kahlua, toasting in our kitchen with shots that burned sweet. New Year dawned with ambition. Joshua's zine portraits caught a gallery eye, a queer-owned space in the dog patch, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs. His show, Unframed, opened in January. Walls lined with silver gelatin prints of us, abstracted, my silhouette against the Golden Gate, his hand eclipsing the sun over Twin Peaks. Opening night buzzed, wine flowing, collectors murmuring, Tyler slinking in shadows till Joshua's pointed "not welcome" sent him scurrying. I wore a button-down he'd ironed, beaming as art snobs dissected our lives on emulsion. "You're glowing," a curator told him, air-kissing cheeks. Joshua pulled me aside mid-mingle. into the back alley where dumpsters hummed softly. "This is yours too," he said, pressing a key into my palm, the apartment's spare, etched with a tiny heart. "Build with me." I kissed him fierce, tasting Merlot and forever. Yes. All in. Spring unfurled like a Polaroid developing, blossoms rioting along the Claremont Canyon trails where we'd hike post-class, his camera clicking wildflowers while I'd sketch maps of future road trips in the dirt. Internships beckoned. Mine at a non-profit crunching data on LGBTQ plus youth homelessness, his assisting a wedding fatig who shot elopements in Muir Woods. Evenings dissolved into domestic bliss. Him experimenting with vegan pozole from YouTube, me proofreading his grant proposals by candlelight, our laughter echoing off plaster walls. But betrayal's echo never fully fades. It hums low, a cautionary bassline. One April night, scrolling X, formerly Twitter, in bed while Joshua snored softly, a thread caught my eye, Castro Confessions, anonymous posts spilling tea on hookups gone wrong. One pinned, barista babe at mission grounds, hot fatig BF, but swipes right on every grinder twink. Watch your heart. Attached. A blurry pic of Joshua mid-laugh at the cafe counter, time-stamped last week. Doubt slithered back, cold as fog. Was it him? The posture matched. That damn dimple. I woke him gently, phone thrust under his nose. Explain. He blinked groggy, then pale. Shit. Dan. Does not. But the app history on his phone. Pulled up in a frenzy. Betrayed. Matches archived. But there. Flirting. Harmless. Old habits. Harmless. My voice cracked. Packing a bag with mechanical efficiency. We're building a life. Not a rotation. He blocked the door. Desperation etching lines around his eyes. I'm trying. God, I'm trying. Delete it all right now. Fingers flew over the screen. Account nuked in seconds. But trust? That was shrapnel. Embedded deep. We patched with couples counseling, a queer therapist in No Valley. Her office scented with sage and empathy. Sessions peeled layers. His attachment wounds from Dad's sermons. My perfectionism forged in suburban pressure cookers. Vulnerability's the glue, she said. Homework assignments of daily appreciations scribbled on note cards. It worked. Incrementally. Nights where he'd confess a stray thought without shame. Me admitting fears of inadequacy without armor. Graduation loomed. A cap and gown guillotine. I'd landed a junior analyst spot at a San Francisco firm. Data for social impact. Crunching numbers on housing equity. Joshua's career crested too. A fellowship at SMOMA. Curating emerging queer voices. Commencement was a whirlwind. Mom and Dad in the stands. Rainbow pins winking on their lapels. Mom's idea. Dad's reluctant compliance. Joshua hooped from the bleachers, snapping my walk across the stage, then pulled me into a alcove post-ceremony for a kiss that tasted like diplomas and destiny. Post-grad haze settled. Lease renewals, IKEA runs for bookshelves that doubled as darkroom stations. We hosted our first housewarming, queer collective from campus spilling onto the fire escape with PBR tallboys and a playlist of hosier anthems. Micah cornered me by the cooler. You two look solid. Happy for you. His eyes held no grudge, just genuine warmth. Joshua caught the exchange, later murmuring over cleanup. Jealous. Of what? This? I gestured to the mess of solo cups and fairy lights. Nah. It's us. Summer solstice brought the reckoning. Joshua's mom relapsed. Mets to the liver. Prognosis a calendar of maybes. We drove to Bakersfield in shifts. Civic's AC blasting against the inferno outside. Hospital vigils blurred. Beeping monitors. Her hand frail in mine as she whispered Kern County folklore. Tales of Dust Bowl ghosts haunting the oil fields. Joshua crumbled in the parking lot one night, fists pounding the hood till knuckles split. Why her? After everything. I held him as sobs racked his frame, blood smearing my shirt. We'll fight. Together. The betrayal surfaced then. Cruel timing. In her hospice room, rifling for tissues, I found his journal leather-bound, pages dog-eared. Entries chronicled us, but interleaved. Dan's light blinds me to my dark. Tyler texts again, easy escape. Delete, dated during chemo drives. Crave the chase, even if it kills us. Heart in throat. I confronted him in the cafeteria, fluorescent buzz mocking our whispers. You wrote this. While she fought. While we fought, he sagged, fork clattering. Thoughts, not actions. I stayed. Chose you, but the want, that's the knife. Tears hot, I fled to the car, driving aimless through gridlock till Oakland's lights blurred into stars. He found me at Lake Merritt, dawn gilding the water. I burn it all, he vowed, journal thrust into the flames of a trash bin we'd scavenged. Pages curled black, words to ash. No more shadows. Just us. I nodded, ashes scattering on the breeze. Forgiveness. Round 3, scarred, but standing. Fall etched deeper grooves. Joshua's fellowship demanding late nights at the museum. Me buried in spreadsheets tracking eviction spikes in the Tenderloin. Our apartment pulsed with creative chaos. His contact sheets pinned to every surface like topographic maps of emotion. My whiteboard scrawled with pivot tables and policy what-ifs. Date nights became lifelines. Ferry rides to Sausalito for fish tacos at sunset, where he'd sketch my profile against the Marin headlands, charcoal smudging his fingertips. Mom's check-ins evolved. Weekly calls laced with recipes and subtle probes. Joshua settling in? Good man. That one. Dad's thaw-accelerated post a pride visit, where he'd grumbled through the parade but teared up at a float honoring Matthew Shepard. World's changing. He'd mutter over golf on TV, a concession wrapped in gruff. Joshua's mom's passing came quiet as a held breath. November, leaves carpeting the ICU floor like fallen soldiers. We buried her in Bakersfield's cemetery, dust devils swirling at the graveside as a mariachi band played Cielito Lindo, off-key but earnest. His sister clutched his arm. I stood sentinel, hand at his low back. Eulogy spilled from him raw. She saw me, all of me, when the world wanted blinders. Taught me love's not conditional. It's the fight. Grief hollowed him, a silhouette against our fire-escape sunsets. Nights, he'd pace the living room, camera idle, whispering to shadows. I'd pull him to bed, bodies entwining in silent communion, sex as solace, slow grinds chasing oblivion. Stay, I'd beg when dawn threatened, his head on my chest like a compass finding true north. Healing sprouted tentative, a solo exhibit from his fellowship. Echoes, dedicated to her, portraits of survivors, women like her with bandanas and unbreakable grins. Opening night, the Smoma atrium thrummed, patrons in tailored wool, champagne flutes chiming. I wore the suit he'd picked, navy slim fit that hugged like approval. As he spoke, voice steady over the mic, these are the faces that shaped me. Pride swelled, hot behind my eyes. Tyler lurked in the periphery, uninvited, but Joshua's glare sent him packing, a ghost exorcised. Post-reception, We slipped away to the museum's rooftop, city sprawl a constellation at our feet. He uncorked a pilfered bottle of Veuve, toasting to echoes that linger. The kiss that followed was vintage us. Hungry, hands roaming under starched shirts, fog rolling in like applause. Back home, we celebrated properly, candles guttering on the nightstand, his mouth mapping my collarbone as I arched into the familiar burn. "Love you," he gasped, pace faltering with emotion. Always, winter holidays tested the seams. We split them. Thanksgiving in Sacramento, where Dad carved turkey with uncharacteristic flair, toasting to family, blood and chosen. Christmas in Oakland with his sister and her toddler, a whirlwind of wrapping paper and tiny hands smearing frosting on our jeans. New Year's, just us on Twin Peaks, blanket wrapped against the chill, fireworks blooming over the basin like defiant hopes. "Resolutions?" I asked, nose numb. He nuzzled closer. "More you. Less fear." Spring surged with serendipity. My firm greenlit a project, mapping queer safe spaces via GIS, a digital atlas of havens from saunas to shelters. Joshua collaborated, photographing waypoints, a muraled coffeehouse in the Castro, its owner mid-story about Stonewall refugees, a youth center in the Excelsior where trans teens painted murals of futures unbound. Fieldwork bonded us deeper road trips in the Civic to Fresno AG towns, interviewing farm workers who'd fled machismo for Bay Sanctuary. One evening, in a Modesto motel with peeling flock wallpaper, he framed me against the neon vacancy sign, my cartographer of hearts. Betrayal specter reared once more, insidious as ivy. A work happy hour at my office, craft beers in Somalofts, colleagues loosening ties. I stepped out for air. Phone buzzing. Anonymous DM on Joshua's public Insta, he'd rebuilt it. Professional now. Ask him about last Friday. The Ram. Solo. Attached. Grainy shot of him at the bar. Arm around a stranger, blonde. Lithe. Laughing too close. Paranoia peaked on the BART home. Tunnels blurring into vertigo. He was waiting, apron dusted with flour from a pop-up bake sale. "Hey, stranger. Kiss hello. Innocent." I shoved the screenshot under his nose in the kitchen. Voice Arctic. Solo? His face drained. Client networking. Wedding fatigue led. The guy's marrying his fiancée straight as arrows. Harmless chat. Arm around you says otherwise. Frustration flared his nostrils. Jesus. Dan. Paranoia or trust? Pick one. He stormed to the darkroom, door slamming like punctuation. Therapy doubled down. Sessions fracturing into blame volleys till our counselor's no bullshit, patterns repeat till broken cut through. Homework. A trust ledger. Tallying wins over wounds. It unearthed rot, his flirt as armor against rejection, my vigilance a scar from suburbia's silent judgments. "We're allies," she urged. "Not adversaries." Reconciliation brewed slow. A weekend retreat to Point Reyes, fog-shrouded hostels where we'd hike elk trails. His hand in mine a vow renewed. Over clam chowder at Drake's Bay, he confessed. The arm? Awkward bro hug. But the doubt? That's on me. No more gray areas. I believed him, the ledger tipping positive. Summer solstice marked year 3, anniversary at Steamworks rooftop. Full circle. We'd booked it private-ish. Bribes to the manager for an hour's solitude. Steam rose faint below, but up top, stars pricked the canopy. He blindfolded me with his scarf, leading to a setup, string lights, a cooler of chilled rose, Polaroids of us pegged like laundry on a line, from that first foggy kiss to last week's beach sprawl. 3 years, he said, removing the blindfold. To many more, tears pricked as I pulled him down, blanket soft beneath us. Lovemaking under open sky, urgent yet tender, his whispers cataloging freckles like constellations. Climax crested with his name on my lips, a release of all we'd weathered. But life's script twists. September brought the call. Joshua's dad, stroke in a Reno motel, slurring pleas for his son. We flew out, Southwest peanuts uneaten in laps. The hospital was fluorescent purgatory, monitors beeping Morse of mortality. His old man shrunken in the bed, preacher's fire dimmed to embers. "Boy," he rasped, eyes locking on Joshua's. "Forgive an old fool?" Joshua's hand trembled in mine. "You showed up." That start. Rehab stretched months, Reno winters biting as betrayals. We shuttled weekends, me crunching remote while he navigated bedside vigils, unearthing diaries of a man torn, sermons penned with self-loathing marginalia. Lord, heal my boy and me. Reconciliation flowered thorny. Barbecues in the sister's backyard, Dad's grill smoke mingling with awkward laughs over potato salad. One night, beers cracked on the porch. He gripped Joshua's shoulder, proud of the man you are. Back in the bay, scars salved. We planned permanence, a commitment ceremony, low-key in Golden Gate Park, under the bison paddock where we'd picnicked post-fight numero uno. Invites went out, Mom and Dad, his sister and niece, Micah as best man with a wink. Venue, a meadow circled by yooks, officiant a drag queen elder with stories of Compton's cafeteria riots. Prep was chaos joyful. Joshua obsessing over playlist, no single ladies, vetoed with giggles, me haggling Etsy for vow journals. The eve, we fasted tradition, slipping away to Baker Beach, nude under moonlight, waves lapping ankles as we exchanged promises etched in sand. Through steam and storm, I choose you. Ceremony dawned mist-kissed, 50 souls gathered, rainbow pins glinting. Vows spilled heartfelt, mine on his light piercing my closets, his on my steadiness anchoring his tempests. Rings, simple tungsten bands, engraved with lens apertures, slid home amid cheers. Kiss sealed it, salt-tanged and sure, bison lowing distant benediction. Reception sprawled picnic style, food trucks slinging mission burritos, a photo booth spitting strips of us mid-silly. Dad cornered Joshua by the cooler. "Take care of my boy." A nod, gruff but genuine. As dusk fell, we danced slow to At Last. His head on my shoulder, world fading to our pulse. Post-vow glow lingered like afterimage, honeymoon a camper van loop through Yosemite, granite monoliths mirroring our solidity. We hiked half-dome cables hand in glove, vertigo laughed off with kisses at the summit, valley sprawling emerald below. Evenings by Merced River fires, Esmore's sticky sweet as his confessions. Never thought I'd have this. Us. Work beckoned back. My promotion to lead analyst. Dashboards tracking policy wins like queer clinic fundings. Joshua's exhibit toured, echoes to LA's Hammer Museum. Us jetting down I-5 for the install. Hollywood haze no match for our shine. Panels debated representation. Afterward, in a WeHo dive, he toasted to framing truths. Domesticity deep in grooves. Adopting a rescue mutt. Luna. Scruffy terrier mix with Joshua's storm eyes, who'd chew our socks but curl between us on movie nights. Brokeback vetoed for love. Simon romps. Holidays hybridized. 4th in Sacramento with Dad's fireworks. Queer flags snuck in by mom. Hanukkah lax at his sister's. Adopted tradition. Menorah flickering beside Christmas tree. Cracks, when they came, were seismic. My firm's merger swallowed autonomy. New brass slashing budgets. My Safe Spaces project asked for ROI metrics. Layoff whispers echoed C-suites. I drowned out in overtime. Home late to Joshua's worried talk to me. Snaps frayed. His fellowship ending abrupt. Grant dried by board politics. Camera shelved for barista shifts that chafed his soul. The fight ignited over dinner, cold Thai takeout. Luna whining at our feet. "You're shutting me out," he accused. Fork stabbing pad CEW. "Like I'm the enemy. You're not here." I shot back. Exhaustion venomous. "Gig hopping while I grind for us." His laugh barked bitter. "Us? Or your savior complex?" Words escalated. His golden boy jabs at my suburb scars. My commitment phobe digs at his flirty ghosts. Door slammed. I crashed on the couch. Luna's nose nudging guilt. Dawn brought regrets hangover. He found me brewing coffee. Ice puffy. "Sorry. We're fraying." I pulled him close. Steam curling between us. Therapy again? Or just us? Us. Packed sealed with slow sex on the kitchen floor. Luna banished to the balcony with a chew toy. Reconnection raw. Bodies relearning trust's terrain. Renewal sparked sideways. Joint venture. A queer photodoc series on Bay Area elders. Survivors of raids and AIDS crises. Voices archived in my data weaves. Funding crowdfunded via Kickstarter. Backers from our ceremony crowd. Shoot spanned. Golden Gate Park chess tables where a black lesbian vet schooled us on Comptons. A Soma leather bar where a septuagenarian daddy spun tales of 70s bathhouse revolutions. Editing nights bonded us tighter. Darkroom red glow. His prints pinned beside my timelines. Stories synthesized into a zine. Ancestors Aperture. Launch at the Castro's Valencia Street Gallery drew tears. Viewers tracing lineages in emulsion. Hugs exchanged like heirlooms. A patron's check funded Phase 2. Joshua's spark reignited. Lens alive again. Anniversary 2 hit amid bloom. We revisited Steamworks, not for steam, but sentiment rooftop booked. City at dusk. Picnic Redux. Charcuterie scavenged from Byright. His vintage lens as centerpiece. 2 years, he said, popping Prosecco. To fractures mended, kiss deepened, hands wandering familiar paths. Lovemaking under twilight. Urgent yet unhurried, his gasps sinking with foghorns distant. Afterward, tangled in the blanket, he traced my ring. Kids? Someday? I nodded. Vision flashing. Tiny hands in ours. Park picnics with adopted chaos. Yeah. Our legacy. Legacy tested swift. Joshua's dad passed spring. Quiet coronary in his recliner. Bible open to prodigal son. Reno funeral was fraught. Aunts murmuring judgments. Sister steel-spined beside us. Joshua spoke grace. He came around. Late, but true. Graveside. He scattered prints, snaps of us from the ceremony. Petals for a man who'd bloomed last. Grief revisited old rites. Joshua's benders light but lurking. Bar tabs I paid silent. I countered with structure hikes in the headlands, where wind whipped confessions free. One bluff top. Marin headlands crashing below. He broke. Afraid I'll lose you to this darkness. Won't happen. Vow renewed. Rings kissed like anchors. Summer crested with opportunity. My firm pivoted. Rehiring for a federal grant LGBTQ plus equity mapping nationwide. Relocation floated. DC whispers. Policy Hub. Joshua's doc series eyed East Coast tours. Adventure? He proposed over ice cream at Bayreuth, scoops melting in the heat. With you? Always. Uproot planned meticulous. Apartment purge. Luna's vet checks. Tearful goodbyes to the collective. Last Castro night. Bar crawl from midnight sun to cafe floor. Shots of Tuaca burning paths. Dances pressed close amid drag brunches. Dawn found us on the rooftop deck. Steamworks humming below like a lullaby. San Francisco shaped us, he murmured, head on my lap. But we're the story now. DC welcomed autumnal. Cherry blossoms ironic in October chill. Row house in DuPont Circle with turret views of embassy flags. Unpacking unearthed memories. That first napkin number, faded but framed. Jobs gelled. My cubicle overlooking the mall, crunching census data on disparities. His adjunct gig at Smithsonian, curating queer archives with scholars who geeked over his zine. Winter settled crisp. Thanksgiving potluck with queer neighbors, Turducken experiments and queer carols. Christmas markets on M Street, glühwein warming palms as we window shopped for Luna's bow tie. New Year's, Lincoln Memorial Steps, fireworks over the reflecting pool, his kiss tasting of champagne and change. Betrayal's final echo, a DC temp, lithe intern at my firm, flirty emails I'd delete unread. Temptation brushed, dismissed, loyalty's muscle, flexed stronger. Joshua confessed a similar snare, gallerist advance rebuffed. We're battle-tested. We laughed over foe in Eden Center. Vietnamese strip malls a humid haven. Spring bloomed domestic dreams. Fertility consults for surrogacy. Profiles scoured for matches. One profile stuck. A teacher from Philly. Warm eyes in the photo. Story of chosen family mirroring ours. Process stretched, but hope rooted. Climax crested summer. Joshua's doc premiered at Tribeca. Ancestors' aperture on the big screen. Elders' voices booming in a darkened theater. Q&A post-screening. Tears flowed. A standing ovation that left him shaking in my arms backstage. We did this. Postfest. Rooftop bar overlooking Hudson. NYC skyline a jagged promise. Marry me? Legal this time, he asked. Ring box velvet in pocket, gold band. Aperture engraved twin. Kneeling in the glow. I said yes. City lights witnesses. Wedding wove intimate. City hall elopement. Then reception in a Brooklyn loft. 50 souls. Drag officiant reprising vows with flair. Mom danced with Dad to What a Wonderful World. His arm around Joshua tentative but there. Vows echoed originals. Deepened. Through betrayals and breakthroughs. I choose you flawed. Fierce. Forever. Honeymoon. Amtrak to Seattle. Then ferry to the San Juans. Cabins with no Wi-Fi. Kayaks slicing Salish Sea. Days blurred. Whale watches. His camera capturing orca breaches. Nights by driftwood fires. Bodies etched in salt and starlight. Back stateside. Life layered fuller. Positive surrogacy match. Heartbeat blips at ultras. DC-rooted community garden plots. Luna chasing squirrels in Rock Creek Park. Joshua's tenure track solidified. My panels at congressional hearings. Voice amplifying margins. Years stacked like prints in albums. First birthday cake smash for baby Ellis, named for milk. Gray eyes like Dad's. Toddler tantrums weathered with tandem hugs. Betrayals? Faded sepia. Lessons inked indelible. One evening, Ellis napping, we climbed the turret DC fireworks distant for July 4th. Nothing the same, Joshua mused, echoing that first hook. I leaned in, lips brushing his. Better. Because of us. Humanity's tapestry phrase and men's. Love the boldest thread, weaving through steam's haze to dawn's unyielding light. Ours. American epic. Scarred. Soaring. Eternally framed.